Hey everybody, it's Party Elite, and today we're going to take a look at some exciting new announcements that came out of E3 2019. Those of you familiar with this channel probably know what kind of games to expect, and if the title doesn't give it away, we're going to be looking at the broad category of strategy games. Whether that's a Tycoon game, an RTS, a turn-based strategy game, or more of a tactical game, I'm hoping to highlight some games that might have otherwise flown under all of our radars. So, without further ado, let's dive into some new strategy games to look out for from E3 2019. Age of Empires came up again this E3, and somehow we're still not looking at Age of Empires 4. Nope, instead we're getting yet another updated version of Age of Empires 2. Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition releasing this fall. Now I imagine this one didn't really slip under most people's radars, but let's talk about the little details that may have. Now, I'm not going to say it's a bad thing that we're getting another Age of Empires 2 edition, I suppose. Age of Empires 2 is one of those fantastic classics that every subsequent Age of Empires game is going to be measured against, so it does give me some confidence seeing them re-release the game so many times, especially hopefully close to Age of Empires 4. On the 20th anniversary of this classic, Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition is not only bringing us a 4K upres, but we're also getting some gameplay changes. Simple quality of life changes that can be turned off by purists. We're going to see better army selection mechanics, building queues, a visual queue for global recruitment, auto replanting settings for farms, and these are all welcome changes, I think. AI improvements on harder difficulties is an interesting selling point as well, and we're also going to see tutorials in the form of challenge missions that have you accomplish various nuanced player skills, actually helping you train for multiplayer gameplay. All of this, I think, is nothing compared to the addition of a full-on campaign expansion, The Last Cons. Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition seems like it'll be fun, cleaning up some of the things that made the original feel a little dated, while adding a fair bit of new gameplay and fun to be had as well. On the topic of classics, Stronghold is getting a new addition to the series with Stronghold Warlords. Taking us east to East Asia, we're going to see Japan, China, and Mongols as factions. I haven't played a Stronghold game in a very long time, but this one does look absolutely gorgeous and seems to have the same personality as prior games, just with modern visuals and mechanics. The new setting from 3rd century BC to 1200 AD in East Asia should give us a great deal of variety, if not at least freshness, in gameplay mechanics as well. There isn't quite that much to go on here, but we know the game releases sometime in 2020, and it comes with single and multiplayer options. Historical campaigns and technological marvels, such as the rise of gunpowder, should allow for some interesting progression, but with the sometimes hit-and-miss nature of these games, it's hard to make too many assumptions. I'm cautiously optimistic here, and definitely very curious to see more. And yet another franchise seemingly being brought back from the ether this E3. I briefly mentioned it last year, but it is now official with the trailer and everything. Evil Genius 2 is happening. I'm extremely excited for this game, as it seems to be keeping all the charm of the first, and I cannot wait to dive into it with modern gameplay sensibilities and options. You play an evil mastermind complete with henchmen and a lair, where you not only build and upgrade your base and capabilities, but also send out your associates to perform various nefarious deeds the world over. Developing and placing traps to fight off the forces of justice when they invade your base, building doomsday devices, and hiring goons to do your bidding is all part and parcel of a game like Evil Genius 2, and I cannot wait until 2020 when this game releases with hundreds of objectives that range from selling the British royal family to baking Alaska. I had a ton of fun with the first game, and I look forward to furthering my plans of world domination on the channel in this humorous, Austin Powers-style world of spies and villainy. Commandos 2 is back again as well with an HD remaster Q4 of this year. The original was a genre-defining game, having you take control of an elite group of commandos needing to move deep into enemy territory during World War II. The real-time tactics games are a ton of fun, and the Commandos games were exceedingly challenging, blending action and stealth, with the latter being extremely important to successfully pulling off a mission. There isn't too much to say here as the remaster is purely visual, though it does also bring a more modern UI and an improved tutorial. If you missed out on the game when it first came out, you can look forward to a very difficult game that has you leading a small squad of specialists, each with their unique skill sets, through World War II. Songs of Conquest, coming out in late 2020, is a gorgeous turn-based game that is having a lot of comparisons to Heroes of Might and Magic being thrown around, which is enough to get me excited. A game about building kingdoms, raising armies, wielding magic, questing for loot, and fighting monsters, Songs of Conquest is sounding extremely ambitious with a closed alpha coming soon, supposedly. Apart from building up your kingdom and raising armies, it sounds like battles are actually commanded directly by you as the player. The developers have said that they're inspired by games such as the Heroes of Might and Magic and the Total War series, so that's very exciting. Creating synergies between magic casters, called wielders, and the troops they bring to the field with them is going to be a major part of developing strategies, and an example out there right now includes the need for engineer troops working with the wielders and their skills to build battlefield obstacles. Day-night cycles are being discussed as potential mechanics that affect various buffs and debuffs as well, and there will be a variety of factions, from gallant knights to frog people to undead to merchant nations with gunpowder and machinery. There is a lot to be excited about here, and I'm completely on board with everything we've heard and seen so far. Yes, the music is amazing as well in that opening trailer that they've shown, and I'm definitely going to be covering it here on the channel, and I eagerly await the upcoming alpha. Planet Zoo, from the people that brought us Planet Coaster and Zoo Tycoon, is looking like another phenomenal Tycoon game that involves building habitats, managing the workings of the zoo, and dealing with animals that the developers describe as thinking, feeling individuals with personalities of their own. The game also seems to have a bit of a conservationist angle. There's talk of helping your animals progenate and releasing later generations into the wild, which I think is an admirable idea. There are certain standard elements at play as well, of course: terraforming, thematic approaches to your zoos, research and development, big picture approaches, and even a great deal of micromanagement for those that want it. The devs have made it very clear that the animals are not really following scripted behavior and seem to be driven by moods and desires instead. An example touched on in a Great PC Gamer article is about how chimpanzees are extremely demanding and require climbing opportunities. Apparently, with Planet Coaster-style building systems, you're able to craft climbing frames that these chimpanzees use in their own creative ways, the result of over a year's worth of work from the developers. Some animals are able to coexist, which you can use to your advantage when it comes to balancing space and cost, and at times you'll try to manage breeding as well to ensure good offspring. Yes, there's a whole genetics angle to this as well, which is really fascinating for a Zoo Tycoon game. There's so much to discuss about Planet Zoo already, so many nifty mechanics and details and systems, and all of that is packaged in a fantastic visual style by developers with a fantastic pedigree as far as these sorts of games are concerned. I am really looking forward to this game and the community tie-ins it will bring with it, and I cannot wait to dive in later this year with a 5th November release date. Griftlands is very different from any game I've covered on this channel before, but between the art style and the ambition, as well as the humbleness expressed by the developers, I'm extremely excited for it. A single-player, roguelike, deck-building game about negotiating, stealing, fighting, and talking your way out of, or perhaps into, trouble. There are 2 decks that get built as you play a campaign, one for negotiations and one for battle, which should make for interesting gameplay in both types of scenarios, ensuring neither gets too cookie cutter, I suppose. Clay has always partnered with distribution platforms during early stages of development, and this time around, they've gone with the Epic Game Store as their alpha platform starting July 11th of this year. Thankfully, June of next year, they're going early access on Steam proper, and the current plan for launch is fall of next year, which I imagine will be on Steam as well as the Epic Game Store, and perhaps additional platforms as well. I'm a little bummed out about the alpha exclusivity, but I definitely want to see the game progress through development into a finished product. So, depending on your interest level as a viewer of this channel, I might dive onto it when it's alpha on the Epic Game Store, or perhaps we'll wait until next year and it goes into early access. Either way, Griftlands is looking fantastic after a long time in development. Starmancer, meant to release later this year, is a charming pixel art simulation game where you take the role of an AI in charge of managing a space station in a randomly generated galaxy. You're in charge of looking after your colonists' needs and wants, and you need to make sure they're not only watered, fed, and otherwise satisfied, but also that they're getting their work done. Colonists develop relationships, trade gossip, and carry around their own inventories full of either harmless items or perhaps narcotics and weapons. Mutinies, rumor mills, and class struggles are all supposedly part and parcel of the game, and if you do a poor job as a Starmancer, you might have a full-on rebellion on your hands. You'll be maintaining oxygen levels, dealing with wiring, picking pretty wallpaper options, flying out on missions, trading with certain parties while fending off others, all while trying to keep your own physical embodiment safe from damage. Add to that the pirates that might come knocking, or the derelict space stations and spaceships that you might want to explore, and this game has quite a lot going for it. I backed this game on Kickstarter sometime last year, and I've been looking forward to it ever since, so you can definitely expect to see it covered on the channel. Phantom Brigade is a game that I've mentioned briefly on this channel before, and one that I'm very excited to mention over and over again. This mech battle strategy game blends fond memories of Front Mission with interesting combat mechanics in the likes of Frozen Synapse, turn-based in a way, allowing you to see what the AI is planning on doing to help you plan your own moves and then watch them play out at the same time. Physics plays a key role in all of these actions playing out, with some really amazing building destruction and slipping and sliding going on at a grand scale. The game is visually really something special too. I love the style it has between the world and the UI, and there's a great deal of energy to it all. The developers are planning on implementing some ways for players to record battles with cinematic angles, which would make for some great fun entirely on its own as well. The whole timeline system, breaking battles into 4-second phases, makes for a not-so-often-seen approach, and with the giant mechs firing at each other, physics often comes into play to change how things play out, like I was saying earlier. The developers have previously talked about mech customization as well, and missions range from town defense to attacking enemy facilities, and God knows what else. The strategic layer involves a world map, base management, and resource management as well, but there isn't too much information on that front as far as I've seen just yet. Now the sad news is that the game is going to be an Epic Game Store exclusive for its first year, and then finally releasing on Steam afterwards, so as far as I'm concerned, the release of the game is quite a ways away.
Comes at the start of the next sequence. There is much work to be done since the invasion. We must take back what is ours. We are counting on you, Commander.
Empire of Sin is a very exciting new announcement set for release in spring of 2020. This strategy game from Romero Games and Paradox Interactive is going to take us to Prohibition-era Chicago, playing as the criminals in this era of glamour. With what looks like XCOM-style strategic layers and tactical battles, players will be building a crime empire, complete with mobsters, speakeasies, casinos, brothels, and other such nefarious, sinful activities. Hustle your way into rival territory or defend your own through the tactical turn-based combat, all while spending your time in the strategic layer schmoozing with NPCs. You'll be building alliances, managing character relationships, bribing cops, spying on rivals, trading on the black market, brewing your own alcohol for your speakeasies, and having sit-downs with other mob bosses. Multiple ways of attaining victory should allow for some great replayability, which is good to hear since the developers are suggesting that each playthrough is likely to last 10 or so hours at most. There's no real story, apart from the underbelly of 1920s Chicago, which acts as the backdrop to all the gameplay. Now I'm excited to see how all these systems come together in this game, and given the names involved, I'm sure we're going to see a great game, and as a big fan of the era and mob movies and mob books, I cannot wait to get my hands on it. Now this is, of course, not a comprehensive list of every game I'm excited for out of E3. There's Chivalry 2, the Epic Game Store exclusive that has to compete against the popularity of Mordhau. There's Baldur's Gate 3, which I cannot wait to dive in on. Cyberpunk 2077 looks phenomenal from the creators of the Witcher games, and the new Watch Dogs Legion, looks very intriguing. And of course, there's a rather good-looking Star Wars game or two. Between LEGO Star Wars, the Skywalker saga that spans the 9 Skywalker movies, and Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, set shortly after Revenge of the Sith, there's some good Star Wars gaming hopefully coming our way. Overall, this was a pretty solid E3 as far as my personal interests in games are concerned. We unfortunately got nothing out of Bannerlord, Command & Conquer, or Darkest Dungeon 2, all three of which I was looking forward to some news from, but nonetheless, a good E3 overall, and 2020 is looking like a fantastic year. What did you think of E3? I think it's safe to say that Keanu Reeves won it, but what are your thoughts? Any games you're particularly interested in? Any you'd like to see me cover on the channel that I haven't mentioned already? Let me know in the comments down below. I hope you enjoyed this video about the exciting near future of games. A big thanks, as always, goes out to all of my channel members and patrons for keeping this channel running smoothly, and a big thanks goes out to each and every one of you for watching. Until next time, cheers.